Okay, second breathtaking place in heaven is the heaven of our inner core.
Okay.
Dum, dum. This is from Secrets of Heaven, 1999. So that's a little farther along than the last one, a little later.
Still early
Still
days.
early
but,
pearly.
he's maybe into his second year of publishing this material.
And this one's a little more ethereal.
Okay.
Our inner core is what makes us human. It is on account of this inner core that we live on after death forever, and that the Lord can lift us up among the angels. So something in us, that's who we are, is like it's deep in our soul or something.
Yeah.
It is the original human form itself from which we are and become human.
Okay.
Through this inner core, the Lord unites with us. You think God connects with us? How? Through this thing, through this inner core. The heaven closest to the Lord is made up of these human interiors, but it exists above the inmost angelic heaven, so that the interiors belong to the Lord himself. That is how the Lord keeps the human race directly under his gaze.
Very interesting to think about a whole realm. First of all, to think about parts of ourselves that, as far as I know, we're not at all conscious of this part. And it's probably by design so that we can't hack it, because if we could get in there, we'd want to change it or do something to it. But and that's how God connects with us. And then to think about a whole, he calls it a heaven, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole heaven above the highest inhabited heaven that just has all these things that are what I picture is sort of like avatars that connect with you wherever you are, but there's a part of you that's up in this realm.
Yeah.
And you're not even conscious on that level, but that's how God connects with you, and that's how you're a human being. That's how you get eternal life, and all these fantastic things come out of that. But what a strange notion.
If you look at this channel and you look at the number of videos published, it's like 1,500 videos. I've been reading Swedenborg for more than 20 years. If you had asked me prior to this moment or prior to this show getting put together, is there anything about, there's the third heaven, and then like Swedenborg talks about layers of heaven. There's
Right.
the first, second, and third layer that we go to depending on what levels of our mind are open. There's 3 levels in the human mind. And the highest is the third heaven, or the inmost heaven. And then there's some space between that and the Lord. I would never have said there's a separate layer of heaven that's everybody's inmost soul hanging out there, and it's by that interaction that the Lord connects with us. I didn't know. Maybe I read this before. I didn't know this was going on. And that is
astonishing.
That's sort of the nerve center of the human race.
And how that's connected, and fascinating to say that that's the actual human. The actual human, whatever the human form means, that's the actual human form.
Yeah.
So it's not that we have language or that we walk upright or, like that's sort of incidental. There's something up there.
And I was going to say, what would it look like if you were there, if somehow you could see it? Because probably you couldn't, like, to be able to perceive what's going on there. You probably aren't equipped to it. But if you get some kind of opposite of submersible, submersible that could go up there and withstand those spiritual pressures, would you see like a bunch of little balls of light? But that's it's the core of what being human is. But then again, like, we start out as a little ball. Like, if you think about the first, like a zygote or an embryo, it's just, I don't know what's up there and what it looks like, but it sure is crazy.
And there's something beautiful about it from the standpoint that it is easy, I think, is very, most if not all of us go through this life feeling like, gosh, I messed this up and I did this badly and I, made wrong choices. And,
you saw my post today.
Yeah. and now I've polluted my soul, or I've I've gone and wrecked myself.
Yeah.
It can't be fixed. There's a scar that'll never be healed. And the idea that, oh no, there's a perfect, that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's my word, not his word, but there's something so close to God up there that there's something that the Lord can most intimately connect with.
Yeah.
That's way above any level of, you can't get paint or stain on that. You can't, it doesn't get dirty. It's pure.
Swedenborg defines perfection in a couple places in relation to how corruptible it is. And he'll talk about like an acorn, where he uses its seed, and that the outermost part of the acorn, we're talking about an apple maybe, the outermost part of it is the least perfect because it rots easily. It can be, you can poke it, but the seeds are more resistant to, they're more perfect because they're more resistant to being harmed, and they hold within them the information, all that. So
you can take seeds that came from thousands of years ago and plant them, and they'll sometimes, they'll actually germinate. Like it's
right.
it's still got nothing about it in all those thousands of years. It didn't rot.
Right.
It's
Whereas
still active.
Applesauce, like you got a few days.
Oh yeah.
So
pretty
it
soon
is,
there's going to be like brown hair all over the thing.
So it is with your internal, with like the deepest part of your soul. Yeah, that you're right. No, it's very hard, nigh impossible to destroy that thing. That's cool. And it's cool to think that like that's the part of you that's really the most alive. Let's continue the quote, shall we?
Oh,
these inner dimensions.
I can never believe there's more. I always think you're done.
These inner dimensions of ours have no life of their own.
Oh.
No, it's not the part of you that's most.
Okay.
No life of their own. What are you even talking about? They are merely forms that receive the Lord's life. Which is true of all, it's what life is. But I think for Swedenborg, it's always important to realize, like, it goes back to the divine. The ultimate force in this is not like, it's not you. We are but vessels that receive life from the Lord. And understanding this is the skeleton key to existence. Like that's a big part of what it is to be a person, is to finally understand I'm going to be continually gifted being alive. It's a gift from God, but he's never going to not do it. It's always going to be there. But just to understand, Jesus talks about, I'm the vine, you're the branches. Yeah. A branch is a thing. It's there, it's alive. If you snap it off of the vine, that's it.
Yeah, and I keep thinking of computer analogies that may or may not work, but thinking about the chip that's at the heart of it, and although the chip is doing all sorts of different things, you can't you can't go in there and go, I'm going to make it go this way, or I'm going to
turn the screen red,
or melt it down, or do and no, and so there's various peripherals that you can add to it. There's certain functionality. Oh, I can add another monitor or throw a keyboard on or whatever. But there's one part of it that was just created. It is the way that it is, and that's the way that it is.
Yeah.
And that's at the heart of the whole thing. And the whole thing wouldn't work without that one little part.
But what about, can't we turn ourselves evil? Can't human beings fall from grace? Isn't that, Swedenborg talks about heaven and hell. So if everyone's got their little soul, doesn't that turn evil if you're in hell? He says, the more awash in evil we are then, whether it is evil we have done or only inherited, the greater the distance that seems to separate us from this inner core. So the inner core is not vulnerable. It's not getting corrupted. It just seems like you're farther away. It just you kind of turning your back on that thing, moving farther away. It's there, but you're just pulling away. That's what evil is, just a pulling away from that.
And it's not, by definition, if I understood what he said, it's not in a hell. That inner part is never in hell. Like there's always a part of everybody.
Yeah.
That's way in the highest part of heaven.
Yeah.
And that's how life is able to be funneled to, no matter what you do with your conscious self, turn towards all sorts of, evil, nasty things and love them above all else.
Hatred, vengeance, murder, adultery. Like if you can
These
certainly,
are a few of my favorite things.
you can certainly tie those up in brown paper packages and say this is it. This is what you can have. You can build a life where you consciously choose to get into that stuff and venerate it and try to feel the pleasure of it as much as you can. That's the life of hell. And you can do that. And Swedenborg talks about people in the afterlife who are so, like, they just let all restraint go and they're diving into those things. And that's what they make that when they get up in the morning, they want to do those things. And that's what they go and try to do. And they've, made themselves this insane sort of monster through doing that. What this is saying is, right, there's a part of that person that's up in heaven. That's the part through which God is like interfacing and steering and trying to correct. There's maybe we can like create a very great distance between ourselves and that, but it's some part of you is still up there in this like, all right, we're gonna find a way. We're gonna find a way.
Swedenborg talks so much about the fact that you can never, that freedom is never taken away from you, and that your ability to understand things is never taken away. And I wonder if those live at that high part. In other words, yes, you make all these terrible choices and you get really, devoted to this darkness or something. But the fact that you can choose that is still coming from up here, because it's a divine ability to make a choice like that.
Yeah.
In itself is a divine,
which is consciousness,
almost divine kind of power.
Yeah, consciousness is choice. Like to be conscious is just to be a chooser.
Yeah.
I think that according to Swedenborg, those are identical, and you never lose your ability to be a conscious chooser. Let's hear a little bit more about the relationship between this inner core and evil. And since our inner core is the Lord's and exists with Him, the presence of evil in us also seems to separate us from the Lord. Seems to. Although this core is fixed into us and is inseparable from us, we still seem to distance ourselves from it to the extent that we withdraw from the Lord. Distance is not the same as a complete rift, however. If we were cut off from it, we would not be able to survive death. Rather, our lower faculties, those of our rational self and our outer self, come to clash and conflict with it. The more they clash and conflict, the more distant they grow. The less they clash and conflict, though, the more closely our inner core unites us with the Lord. This unity depends on the amount of love and charity we have, because love and charity unify.
Yeah, it just gives me I know I think about it in too material a way, but the idea of this part of us up here, and then there's other part, the rational mind is all devoted to, no, I'm all about this. This is what I'm doing. I turn my back on all that. Swedenborg talks about characteristic of hell is that there's a hatred of the Lord, just a hatred, and a hatred of anybody who's close to the Lord. And so how weird to be hating this thing that you're intimately connected to up here.
Yeah.
And that gives you the ability to hate.